So basically, the first thing is gonna be about common ports on Windows, But you can take this and make it on Linux too, because this can be found like few ports here can be found on Linux machines too, like port 80, port 443, 21, and even 53. You can find it on Linux. So I don't know if Fro told you guys about the box that we will be covering today. It's
No, I have not.
okay. So let me just go here. So basically, this is a Windows machine on TryHackMe. It's called Relevant. It's let's call it real close, real life scenario that someone had been tasked to do. It has a scope of work. It has like additional information and all that. So let's start from the beginning. Let's say you've been tasked with a pen testing server and they gave you a scope of work. So basically, the scope of work is going to be like determine stuff that you need to go through and determine stuff that you will not be allowed to go through. If this was a real server, you will not be allowed to do a lot of requests. You will not to be allowed to um, I'd say like going through certain directories, using another usernames and all that. It's gonna be like a specific scope of work that you will be tasked with. That you only need to do stuff and you only need to avoid another stuff. So here on this one, the client requests that an engineer conducts an assignment of the provided virtual environment. So the client has asked that minimal information be provided about the assessment, wanting the engagement conduct from the eyes of a malicious actor. So this let's call it that. This is going to be us. So we will be the malicious actor. We will try to break into this server and see the vulnerabilities it has, and we will not cover the report part, like because at the end you need to report all the vulnerabilities, everything you found on specific order with notes, screenshots, even videos, we will only cover the basic stuffs, which is going to be like scanning the server, see the vulnerabilities, how to exploit certain vulnerabilities, how to use certain tools, and how stuff works on, let's call it a Windows server. So let's start with common ports that you might find when you are tasked to do the pen testing on a Windows server. So port 80 and port 8080. So the most common thing you're gonna find on these ports is gonna be a web server. It's like a Linux machine. Let's say if you wanna go to, let me go here. Let's say you wanna visit like google.com. So if you scan google.com, you might found port 80. So let's try it like this. You see, it failed. That's because it used SSL, so 443. Let's say we're gonna maybe CyberChef. Do you think CyberChef cover port 80 though?
Nope.
Nope. So yeah, basically if you go to a website like this, at the back end, it's gonna be connecting to a port to show you this page, you know. And this port most commonly are like they're gonna be port 80 and port 8080. So if you see those ports on scanning, you, you need to know that these ports are related to showing a web page, showing like something that you can interact with on like geo level. So we have port 135, which is remote procedure call. This one we will be covering later on when we do the nmap scan. We have the SMB network file sharing protocol, which is on port 443 and also 139, which is the
Four four
NetBIOS thing.
four 445.
445, yeah. Thanks, bro.
Mhm.
And we have the 3389, which is the RDP or Remote Desktop Protocol, which means that you can connect to that server using this port. You can connect to it and interact with it using this port. We have 443, which is SSL or HTTPS, which means like this. When you see HTTPS, it's gonna be on port 443, which is like securing the connection. So everything that you've been doing there is gonna be encrypted in one way to say it.
Yep.
So we have 21 FTPs or file transfer protocol. Let's say that you have a server and you want to transfer file there. So FTP is gonna be sometimes it's gonna be a default port that you will interact with to transfer your files to the server or the way around. Like you can download file from your server to your machine using FTP port or FTP service. And also we have the DNS, domain name system communication. DNS is really important because everything on the internet works around DNS. It's basically resolving if you type google.com, this has an IP at the back end. Let's try and ping it real quick. Google.com. You see? So this is the IP. So when you type google.com, this will try to match the IP on the back end, and when it matches the same IP, it's gonna give you a result. And that result is gonna be google.com. So that's how computers or PC interacts on the internet, mostly about IPs. Like when you type Google on the back end, it's gonna be connecting using IPs, because it's how they understand each other. And basically,
So, so
Google.com. Go
let
ahead,
me
bro.
let me jump in, Star. So what DNS basically does is makes it easier for humans because humans can't remember numbers. We can't remember IPs. If we did remember numbers and IPs, we wouldn't have to have this URL google.com. So what it at a high level, what it does is it helps us humans just to type in a name like at google.com, and then it'll search it out for the IP and cross-reference itself and load the web page.
That's correct. So that what Fro just said, that's completely how it works. He's like English, a lot of English more than I do. He explained it a lot better than I do. And that's what DNS stands for. So let's go and do an nmap scan on this box, so I can explain to you guys what's the difference between SMB, RPC, and stuff like that. So first of all, let's do nmap scan on the IP of this is gonna be 1010. Let's make sure again. Yep.
Let me stop while you're doing that scan. Let me cover something real quick for you guys that maybe have never started a THM machine, a TriHackMe machine. Uh, to connect to these machines, we first need to start a VPN file. Okay. Show them where you can get that VPN file if you don't mind on THM.
Yep. So basically, you create an account, go to your profile here, and go to access.
Go to
And
access.
right
Yep.
here, you're gonna see machines and network. Just go with machines. And you can choose the server you want. If you are subscribed, you're gonna see the subscribed servers available to you. But if you are a free user, as I do, because like 80% of the content on TryHackMe is free, I just go with a regular server. After choosing the server, you download the configuration and you go to wherever you downloaded the folder you downloaded the configuration to. For me, it's tryhackme.ovpn. So I do sudo openvpn tryhackme.ovpn or openvpn, and that should give me this result right here.
Right,
It
correct.
will
So what this
connect.
does is this connects you to the machine we are pen testing. And then after that is done, then you go into your user interface on THM and you start the machine. For Windows machines, they take at least 5 minutes. About well, 3 to 5 minutes to start up. Then it'll show us our IP right here, and now we can start our Nmap scan.
Yep. So basically, when you grab the IP, you can start your Nmap scan. I didn't want to cover a lot of Nmap because Nmap is a massive tools with a lot of options in it. But like for you to know what I'm doing with the Nmap, like here I'm doing a service scan and checking for vulnerabilities too, with full port scanning on this IP, which is the, let's call it the victim IP. I'm verbizing everything, like Verbo is basically showing you
More.
everything before, yeah, showing you more and all the steps it's going through so you can work faster, instead of waiting for the end result, which is going to display everything for you. You can go like each time it found support, it's going to show you, hey, this one's open, hey, this one too. So that way you can work faster. You can just grab the IP and try with these stuff to see what's in there. The minimum rate thing, I don't recommend using it on real life scenario because minimum rate 1,000 basically means send 1,000 requests each 1 second. On a real life scenario, if you send this amount of requests, you're gonna get blocked real quick. So you're gonna get detected, you're gonna get blocked, and sometimes if like the company, if they have a small server, you can like shut down the server. You can basically do some kind of DDoS attack without you noticing, and you might bring the whole server down. So I'm doing this option right here because I know this is a CTF server. I'm not. It's not going to affect anything, and it will be accepting all the requests.
Star, why don't you hit a point on the all port scan compared to a normal no all port scan?
Oh, okay. So let's say you want to instead, because like if you search for all port scan, basically you're gonna scan like 65,000 ports, but if you go maybe top 100 or like normal port scan, it's gonna reduce that amount of ports to, let's say, the top
So
common ports.
the top 1,000 common ports is going to be a regular Nmap scan without the dash p dash. Uh, Now, to save us time, I ran it and it only gave me 5 of those ports, those first 5. Now on Star's screen, he did the all port scan and it actually showed us some higher ports, which are in the 40,000 range, right? I'm looking at.
Yep, here you
Yeah.
go.
So those are important. Later down the road, you'll see why when we get to that point.
Yep. So now let's say you finish the scan and you wanna go through what you found.
Yeah.
So basically, if you do this, which is, let me make this a little bit bigger. I don't know if you can see it, guys. So if you do this type of scan, you're gonna see the server, what service is running on each port. Like on 80, it's a HTTP service, which is a web server thing. It's Microsoft IIS based, which is like let's call it the equivalent to uh, Nginx or like Apache or stuff like that. But this is Windows specific. Here we have port 135, which is the RPC that we went through. Here we have the net bias thing, which we will be covering later on. We have the 445, which is the SMB. We have the 3389, which is the RDP we talked about. But here I think it's the SSL. Yeah, here it's the SSL certificate. And here there is higher pools. So let's say that you want to find what port is running, like what service is running here, because you can't just go and like memorize 65,000 ports. Let's say you want to search what this port stands for. Let's say 33889. So you copy that port and go here to Google, type, hey, port used for, just like this. And you see, it's remote desktop protocol. So now we know that this port includes RDP, so you can connect to that machine using RDP servers. Let me see if I have RDP. Yeah, I have free RDP. So if you are on Windows, you can connect using remote desktop connection. If you are on a Linux machine, you can connect using few tools like XRDP by specifying the user, the password, and the IP of the server. That should connect you to the desktop, to a real Windows machine. Also, you're gonna see there is a lot of other ports on higher ends like 49,663. So we have this one here. We have all of these. Mostly when you are used to pen testing Windows stuff or Active Directory, you're gonna recognize easily the ports running. Even if they are higher ports, you're gonna recognize them easily. But right here we see a slightly different thing. We see like on this port it's given us that this is Microsoft IIS. You see, so right here it might be running a web server. So if you remember, guys, we went through the most common things, which is port 80 and port 8080, which will host web servers. But right here, we have this port that actually might be hosting a web server here. So let's look at this from a system administration, network system administration. So let's say you want to run a server and you don't want people to know, like when they do the Nmap scan, you don't want them to see this port. Maybe you can block it, or maybe you want to change the web server from port 80 to this port. That can be done easily. So that's why sometimes you need to verify the ports. So if we go here and let's type this, let me close this one. Let's type the IP dot 209. You see here it's connected. So this means it's gonna be in port 80. So let's try and change to port, what was it though?
It is 4,000, 49,000. So it's 49. Ugh.
There you go.
You got it?
So we have another web server running there, you know. Most commonly you're gonna see this when it's a Windows server, it's gonna be like IIS. So this is like seeing port 80, seeing the web, so like any website you can think of, like YouTube, Google, and all that. They all have specific ports for you to display. So let's say you want to go to, I don't know, let's go to google.com again. So you see it like this. You don't see any IP like this. You don't see any ports like 494 anything, because on the back end it's gonna redirect you to the web server they have. So you're gonna be automatically redirected to wherever the web server is hosted at, like wherever port the web server is hosted. So right here, if we do, you see, we just specify the IP without any ports. But if we hit enter, we're gonna see there is a web server running. So that means it will automatically do this for you. You see, when I type port 80, it will redirect you here. So this is default port for web servers. So until now, anyone have any question about this one?
Yeah, drop it in chat, guys, if you got anything.
Look good to go, guys.
Yep.
No. Let's keep going and let's go through the PowerPoint again. So we saw there is SMB stuff and NetBIOS stuff right here. Like we know this port is SMB and this one is NetBIOS. So what these two things stands for. Why are they really important when you have Microsoft or like when you have Windows Server running? So the SMB versus the NetBIOS thing. SMB is like server message block, is a network protocol used for file sharing, printing, and other communication between computers on the network. Okay, let's say you are on a company and you want to share a file with another fellow comrade of yours. How to say it? Forgot the word though.
Employee.
Like, yeah, you want to share it with another employee, So instead of you, I don't know, like downloading the stuff, putting it on USB, giving that USB to your friend, and hey, please check this out. On the same network of the company, you can use SMB, which is file sharing, and you can share the file with him just with like few clicks. And him on his desktop, he can just log into file sharing and see the file there. So that's what basically, let's put it simple. That's what SMB stands for. It stands for printing too. If you have common printers running on the company and stuff like that. On the other hand, the NetBIOS thing basically is network basic input output system. It's an older protocol used to identify devices on a network and facilitate communication between them. So basically, if you want to share a file, these two PCs on the same network, they need to identify each other, Hey, this file is coming from this PC, so I want it here. So when you share it, the NetBIOS is gonna do the identification for you. It's gonna put it on the file sharing folder and make it easier for the other person to grab it and identify the folder that's coming from you. Simple as that. Let's keep it like simple.
Yep.
Now let's go. Go ahead, Fro.
No, I was just saying, yeah, you're doing well, man. Keep going.
Okay, let's go with the DNS. The DNS, I think Fro covered it completely. He did an amazing job on covering the DNS in simple words. So if anyone have a question about the DNS thing, feel free to ask. After that, we're gonna cover the difference between Windows Web Server and IIS. So if we go back to the Nmap scan, we're gonna see that we have something called IIS running on port 80. But if you go and scan a Linux machine, it's gonna give you another type of result. It's not gonna give you Microsoft IIS. It's gonna give you maybe Apache, maybe Nginx, I don't know, Tomcat, stuff like that. But right here we have Windows IIS. Why it's important for Windows to have this type of web servers? Because Windows depends on IIS because it's faster. It's ASP.NET developed. So let's go through it with the Power View and see the difference. So Windows Web Server is a version of the Windows Server operation system designed specifically for hosting web application and websites. Right here, if we go to let's call it the example.com, we're gonna see there is a website hosted there. So this is a website, and it's Windows Server hosted website. So we know that this one, it includes IIS, you see. So basically it includes various features and services that are optimized for web hosting, Internet Information Services, IIS. So you see, and ASP.NET. We will go through this later on. Now, we all heard about IIS. I keep screaming IIS. So what is it, this IIS? So IIS is a web server software package developed by Microsoft that runs on a Windows web server and other Windows Server editions. So we know it's a web server software and it's developed by Microsoft, and we know Windows is like for Microsoft. So they have their own web server hosting stuff. It's powerful and flexible web server that supports a wide range of web protocols and technologies, including HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, SMTP, and WebDAV. We will cover the SMTP and WebDAV on another event. But for now, let's keep it simple with HTTP, HTTPS, and FTP. We covered all of this on the first page we saw. So we know that IIS is a web server software. We know it's Windows related. That's why Windows uses IIS instead of like Apache. So we know this is Windows machine. So yeah, the SMB stuff, it's really important if you are on a company, you know. And not only a company, if you have like a network on your home and you can share files and all that with a simple clicks. Like right click on the file, you're gonna see share file with, I think it was called network. I think it was called network. Like you can simply share file and all of that. Now let's go and start with the juicy stuff. Let's start with like common basic tools on pen testing Windows. So we know on this scoop that we are tasked to find vulnerabilities on this server. So what tools are we going to use? Like, should we use the same tools that normally and all the people use if it was a Linux machine? Should we use like another type of stuff, another type of tools? So what specific tools that we need, you know? Let's first start with Nmap. I explained the Nmap, but I'm going to explain it again. Let me just remove this real quick to anywhere. Okay, so Nmap is a network exploration and security auditing tool used to discover hosts and services on a computer network. Actually, I want to highlight one thing, which is the security auditing tool. Believe it or not, Nmap, beside of scanning ports, it has scripts, like implemented scripts to check for vulnerabilities. Each time it finds an open port, you can specify an option to scan if that port is like let's call it this way. Hey, Nmap, can you please identify what service is running on this port, and can you see if it's vulnerable to something? And Nmap will actually do that for you. It will run few script to check if that service on that port is vulnerable to something or not. So keep that in mind because Nmap is really helpful on that stuff. As well as identify potential security vulnerabilities, it can be used to perform tasks such as port scanning, OS detection, and version detection of network devices. So Nmap is a must-use tool on all of the servers, all of the engagement, everything, because Nmap, it's like scanning, let's say, it's like seeing a house, seeing what windows it got, what ports it got, let's say, you know. So Nmap is going to be your entry point. It's going to guide you through where you need to look for and what services are running and are they old, are they new, are they exploitable, you know. Beside like copying the service name and scan for it on Google. So let me cover that real quick. So let's say that you did the Nmap scan, you know what services are running on each port. So you need to make sure that this service is not vulnerable to something. So let's just copy this, you know, let's copy this right here, go to Google and type this, then type exploit. And just like that, you're going to see if there's any vulnerability for that specific service or not. See, there is vulnerabilities in 10.0. There is WebDAV, right access code execution. So to be honest, that's how we figure a lot of stuff out. Like if you do hack the box or you do try hack me, or even like real scenario pen testing, this is really helpful to see if there is any exploit for that specific service, you know. It's like going step by step to see, hey, I found vulnerability here. Hey, I can see if this is vulnerable to something before moving out to another topic. Enumeration is a must needed thing to do. You need to enumerate everything. You need to see every detail. You need to check every service so you can make sure that this server is not vulnerable and you can go to the next one, you know. So it's really important for you guys if you see anything uh, running any service running, you can copy the name of the service and search for it on Google to understand it a little bit better and to check if there is any vulnerability for it, you know. So we know Nmap can check for ports and check for services, vulnerabilities, and all that. Now, SMB client. So this one is, let's say it's a Windows specific thing. So this tool is kind of specific for Windows because we saw that SMB was running and SMB is standing for file sharing. So maybe we can do something inside the SMB because a lot of people when they let's say that you are a system administration that needed to configure SMB and somehow you just forgot that you need to turn off uh, anonymous login to SMB. And by anonymous login, I mean that you can just type SMB client like this. Let me just minimize this thing. So SMB client, I'm gonna explain you guys what that stands for. And 209. So basically the N stands for no user or password like default, just like anonymous login or guest login. And tag L stands for listing. So if we do this, let's see if that's gonna make us log into whatever. Oh, you see? So using this, we can see what shares are inside this file sharing thing, you know. So SMB, we know that it has a few folders. Admin C and IPC are default folders on each SMB stuff. You know, these three are default on everything that's SMB related. So
Do you
we
want to
know.
show them the difference of SMB client to CrackMap exec?
Oh yeah, for sure. Let's go with that one. So let me explain this real quick. One point I have. You see the SMB1 thing. This is actually, as I told you guys, pay attention to details. This might lead you to maybe finding something interesting about the protocol because I guess SMB has version 2, right? So this is kind of older one, so it might be vulnerable to something outside of SMB client stuff, you know. So pay attention to details. It's really important to enumerate each stuff. Maybe like this, you know, I have this here, let's say Windows pen testing. This is just notes. Here I say found uh, server running on port 80. You know, just to keep notes, guys, about like how things works. Now we know SMB client can be viewed by just like typing tag in. So let's ask ourselves, you know, just like keep it to yourself and just ask the question that you want to ask. Let's say um, I was able to connect to using SMB client and see shares. Maybe I don't know. I can access a share. You know, access one of them remotely with no user. Yep. So now that we listed the shares, so maybe we can access one of them remotely with no user at all, because we know when you secure when you secure a service, or like when you're trying to secure your server from outside attackers, you need to disable guest login to SMB or like remotely access an SMB without valid credentials, you know. So let's try, and instead of using and let's do tag Q and guest. You see, then password, let's keep it empty and see it's still showing us the same. So we know that these three folders are default. So let's try and see if we can access this one. So right here, let's do this. Let's put the name of the share folder and let's try accessing it. There you go. So we just accessed a folder inside the SMB with no basically no password,
Credential.
nothing.
No
Yeah,
credential.
just so if we do directory or list directory, there is password.txt. So we have a potential password here, and that's why it's important for you guys if you are on the blue team or like network system administration, something like that. Make sure to turn off the guest login. Make sure that you need to provide valid credentials. And also in terms of password, make sure that the password's like, I don't know, 17 digits and up, just make it company policy for you to make the password rotation like changeable each month, maybe change the password, make it like 17 digits length and up. That way you can avoid like guessing the password, because there is word list that can be combined to guess the password and stuff like that. Just make sure to disable the guest to make secure passwords and all that. Okay, do you guys have any questions till now?
I don't see
All
any
good.
yet. Keep on going.
Okay, so now we know that this SMB has password.txt. So let's get back to notes. I just want to tell you guys the importance of taking notes. So let's say I was able to access the so like this, just simple like this. If you want, you can ask yourself a question. So maybe it contains passwords for valid users on the machine, or maybe instead of the machine, maybe it's RDP access stuff. So let's go and see what's inside this. So let's grab that file. Let me just exit and create a file to make this node. So okay, so let's be. So
Go
what I
ahead.
just did,
Yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. So what I just did was grabbing this file, but instead I wanted to grab all. So let's say that you have a lot of files there and you want to grab all of them without the need to just like grabbing them by name, like, hey, get me password.txt, hey, get me users. You can do mget, then this star. So it's gonna get you all the files inside that share folder. So now we have the password.txt. So let's exit from here. There you go, we have the password. So let's cat this one. So we have a user password and it's encoded. So from the look of it, it's base 64. But for you guys, let's say that you don't know what type of encryption or what type of encoding this thing is. So copy that one, and go to Google and type, um, let's say, hash identifier. Go here, just paste it, include all possible, and there you go. It even decrypted this for us, so now we know that this is Bob and this is his password, and we know what type of hash is this. So this is base 64 encoded string, so we know that this is base 64 encoded.
Show them how to decode that in terminal.
Okay, so let's say that you guys want to decode this on terminal. Was it
-D. Yep.
yep, so let's text.txt. Okay, there you go. So if you want to decode this on terminal, let's say that you're familiar with base 64 and you want to decode it on terminal without going out like in searching for a decoder online, you can type echo, then the base 64 code, then base64 tag D, which is decrypt, then output the decryption thing to a test.txt file. So now if we do this, then we do encat the test.txt, we're gonna see that we have the same result as far as this website. So we did the decryption on our machine instead of going like and decrypting outside. So does anyone have any question for now? Are passwords really saved in SMB in real engagement? No, like there is.
Sometimes they are. You gotta look. You gotta search them out. Sometimes they're not like called password the file. Maybe it's a config file or something that has passwords in it. And your SMBs, if you get in, they can be very large. They can take you days to go through them. And it's actually a vector that you can find passwords in. Yes, absolutely. Start looking at all files. Every file that you find in SMB could have a password in there.
Because sometimes we still like when you do engagement, it's still people that behind the PCs, and people make mistakes. And a lot of people, hey, can you share me the password for this one? So they throw them on the SMB stuff, like sharing SMB. Sometimes they forget to delete the files there. So it's a possibility that you might find the password or credential related stuff on the SMB. So now that we have valid credential, what we can do is like, let's try and access with this credential. Maybe we can find anything on SMB. So instead of user guest, we can use Bob. So in the password, let's copy this and paste it. Okay, there you go. So we have valid access. Let's make sure this is valid.
See you
Uh
for
oh.
Yeah, get on it, Fork.
So I'm gonna go through crack map exec later on, but from what we're seeing right here, this might be valid credential for SMB. So crack map exec is a huge tool, and if you are into Active Directory pen testing or like Windows pen testing, crack map exec has a lot of feature in it, especially for Windows stuff. Like you can do Windows Remote Manager, you can do SMB, SSH, RDP, LDAP, FTP, and Microsoft Server SQL. So it has a lot of features. I'm not going to go through them today, but I highly recommend to go through Crack Map Exec and see all the features it has and all the options that you can do with this with Crack Map Exec. So now we know that passwords, this one has Bob and a password. So let's see this one. Let's see if this one has anything in it. So let's get back to hashes. Paste it here, include all possibilities. And there you go. So this is also base64. We have username called Bill and a password. So as I said, the importance of taking notes. So let's take this. We have valid credential here. So let's put them aside. So let's call this, put it, let's call them valid creds. And Bob2 is a potential valid creds. Sometimes we cannot verify if these are valid credential on SMB because SMB has the guest mode on. So basically anything you throw in it, it's gonna take it, So let's see if we can do, instead of Bob, we can use, I don't know, let's say Fro, and password empty. You see, so that's why sometimes we cannot validate users on SMB client if there is guest mode on, because it
Right.
will take any username and any password you threw it, and it still access the SMB and show you the files inside.
Hey, let's get to the questions after the presentations, guys.
Okay, so let's go with, now that we know the passwords, we know there is Bob, there is Bale, we that these are potential user valid credentials, that might access RDP, might access another stuff. So let's keep going and see what we have. So here on SMB, we finished because like everything we can see, it's right there. So we don't need SMB anymore. So let's get back to Nmap and see what else we can do.
So, guys, at this point, we found credentials, right? So we need to think to ourselves, we've done enumerated the SMB as much as possible. From here, what can we do with these creds that we found? Where do we go? And at this point, we're going to go back and look at the Nmap scan to find out, is there anywhere we could put creds in? Is there login screens? Is there FTP server possibly? Stuff like that. Okay, go ahead, start.
Okay, so now let's go to another. Let's go and see this. We know that there is a web server running, right? Maybe we can find admin, like slash admin. Maybe we have admin login here. And I don't think so. It's taken a lot of time. So no, maybe admin is not there. But let's go and see how can we find a valid like directories inside that web server. We know this is a web server. We know that there is a web server running. Now, what else can we see from the web server? What else can we discover? I'm gonna show you guys one tool that was not intended to show, but let's go with it. It's a tool called What Web. So this tool, let's type. Let me clear this. Oh wait. Let's see if this is gonna give us any output. Okay, there you go. So Huawei basically is gonna give you valid and yet good information about this, because we know what server is running. We know it's HTTP server, which is Microsoft IIS 10. We know the IP uh, of the website. We know this thing too. We know the title, which is IIS Windows Server. We know what is it powered by, and this is sometimes is really important, because sometimes if you do a Linux machine, you're gonna see powered by PHP, powered by, like on these days, you're gonna see powered by Python and stuff like that. But because Python server and all that is being implemented, also the Java thing, it's being implemented to the website. So there is a lot of options to hosting a website or hosting a server. But now we know that this is ASP.NET. We know this is a pure Windows machine that's relying on IIS, and it's using ASP.NET coding. So this is a really nice detail, because let's say that we found a way to go to, let's say, upload a shell on the website. Now with this, we know that we can't upload any PHP there, or like any other type of file that is not .asp or .aspx. We will go through that later on. But for now, WhatWeb is a really good tool to see a lot of juicy stuff. to call it some way, you know. Now that we know this, let's go and see if we can find any juicy directories running on port 80, you know. So we know this is port 80, we know it's running web server. Let's see if we can find any directories, you know. For this, let's use a tool called GoBuster. And I'm gonna go through the options here in a second. So okay, so GoBuster is like fuzzing tool for directories, and let's go and see what is finding directory is. So basically, finding directories or fuzzing is a method used to discover hidden or sensitive directories on a web server by systematically enumerating and testing possible directory paths. It works by taking a word list of commonly used directory names and extensions and appending them to the target URL. So basically what it do is going to be like, hey, do you have, I don't know, like admin? No. So it's going to go to the next thing on the word list. Do you have like, I don't know, like PHP maybe? Do you have ASP? So that's how it's going to be fuzzing for directories, you know, and it's going to give you a valid response. Going back here, okay, so this process can reveal directories that are not linked or visible from the web application interface. Because if you visit the website, you will not like think that it might have any other directories there. Because sometimes when you visit let's say a WordPress website, there is click, you know, you can click on archive, posts and all that, and the link is gonna change. Like if you click on posts, it's gonna be posts, stuff like that. But in this case, we don't know anything because we can't click on anything. So how can we fuzz for directories here? We're gonna use one tool called GoBuster. There is a ton of tools. Let's try GoBuster. Oh, there you go. So I know what the problem was with FUF, which is I think I need to specify the fuzzing part. There you go. So on FUF, you need to specify where should this tool use the word list against, you know. So we want everything to be used against /fuzz, and it will replace the fuzz word with everything on the word list we are using on the directory listing, and it's gonna be listing um, everything it found here. So right now it's running really slow. Let's make it run faster. Let's give it T then 100. See, it's gonna be like doing 100 and 100 and 100 each like few seconds. Meanwhile, we can leave it on the background and go to another thing. Let me just move this to 5. This is gonna be easy for us. And we can go to another thing. We can see if we have anything on the RPC client. Here we can see the option that we need. So what we need right now is the user. See this one. So this one with credential and this one with no pass. I don't think we can. Let's try and access it with no pass. So try it like this. Yep. We cannot access the RPC like with guest users, you know. So what we can do is using this option to log in with credentials. So let's do TagQ. See, so domain, user, and the password. Domain is going to be this one. User is going to be Bob. You know, let's try Bill. Then the password is going to be this one. Was it the percentage one? Yeah. Oh, it's too early now. Yep, it's still early out. I think RPC will not work in this box. So let's move out. We know the RDP is there, but on this one we will not cover the RDP bits because it's gonna take resource and it's gonna be slow, really slow because this box is a little bit old and it's not designed to be accessed like quickly with the RDP. So let's move forward. We know this one has a web server too, so let's go and see if we can find anything there too. Yep, roger that. Okay, so now we have this one. Let's try and see if it has any directory in it, you know. So let's do the same thing as we're doing here. Make it.
Okay, yeah. So the fuzzing piece, when it comes to fuzzing or fuzz testing, right? It's just you send them random data, and what he did here was point to a word list in order to get that done. The word list was full of random words that are most commonly found in web content, web directories, real world. That list can change, new lists come out, but fuzzing in general is just sending random data to see what the application does. Don't forget that this phase of the pen test here is just testing the application. We have not made it to system level or got it past anything past the SMB progress that we have now. So it is just random input, and then from there we're going on to status codes, HTTP response codes, which are your 200s. If you see here in the screen, it says your negative status codes are going to be 404. Actually, your negative status codes are going to be anything in the 400 series. And if anything is present or good, or you got a good solid response from the server, you get that status 200, which is what these tools respond as found or not. Now, real world, you could get a 200 found for a WAF response, or a 400, 500 from a WAF response. It's just a matter of you actually visiting what the tool reported.
Okay, so what I was saying is like right now, if we visit this website, Burp Suite is actually really important when you want to analyze the type of request you're doing, the type of response you're having. This is like really interesting to go with. Like you can do the research on your own, and if you have any question, you can ask any one of us. But the thing is, with Burp Suite, you can see the request, you can analyze the request, you can see what the server is doing, and you can see the response too. So if we send this request, they should give us a response. Okay, wait, let's start this machine real quick. Let's give it a minute. We're gonna grab the new IP, but yeah. So now we should have the IP in a few seconds. And the type of request we went through, like mostly if it's like 200 is going to be success, so the request went through and it's okay. If it's 400, it's going to be bad request, unauthorized, forbidden, and not found. And I can show you guys real examples about the forbidden and unauthorized stuff because this box doesn't include it, and I don't want to go through real websites, you know. But you can find this when you go to unauthorized, like if you go /admin, maybe that admin directory or the login page only accept a certain type of IPs. And when it sees that you are outside, let's say from the US, it will give you, hey, it's forbidden, or hey, it's unauthorized, And when it comes to internal server errors or like 500 response, that might be to the type of request or the type of input you're giving the website. Like if you type, I don't know, if you, as a login, as username, you type 1,000 words as username, that might break the website and tells you, hey, internal server error, because I can't understand what type of username you want to give the server. I can't give you a valid response to that, so it's gonna error out with 500. So now we have the new IP. Let's go in. So now we know how to identify hash, how to decrypt it either on website, on terminal 2. We know how Nmap works and how to do a few stuff with Nmap. We went through, as I told you guys, the SMB client tool thing to remotely connect to SMB share folders. We went through the IIS, which is a web server. We went through the Windows web server too. We went through the DNS, the difference between SMB and NetBIOS, and through the common ports on Windows. Now let's go and see what like one of the most important tools that you can see if you are pen testing Windows, which is Impacket tools. Basically, Impacket is a collection of Python-based tools for network security testing, penetration testing, and other security-related tasks. So the tools and the network Impacket suite are designed to interact with various network protocols and services, including SMB, LDAP, MSSQL, and RDP. Pay attention that we saw that CrackMap exec do a lot of similar stuff too, because when we saw CrackMap exec, we saw that it has a WinRAM, we saw that it has LDAP, SMB, SSH, and stuff. But actually, sometimes you can do a lot of interesting stuff with Impacket, such as like PSExec, WM.
WMI exec.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah. So basically, with these, if you have valid credentials and you have access to the share folders, you can connect and have a connection with the server. Like let's call it the type of shell, like a type of reverse shell, with the server just using PSExec with valid credentials. Because if that user has access and read, let's call it like read and write access to I don't know, admin. Do you remember, guys, when we saw admin? So if it has read write access to admin, then there is 80% chance that if you do Impacket PSExec, then you will be able to connect to have a reverse connection with the server. But for now, we just have 2 credentials. We don't know what to do with them. We know they are potential valid grids, but let's go and see. Oh, there you go. It's up again. Okay, nice. Okay, so when we did the fuzzing thing, we found a folder called network server. And also what we did was like, we see this empty, right? We don't know if there is anything inside or not, but we know it's empty. If we see the page source, it's empty. So this folder exists. So what happens if we like grab this folders and go to, let's say, fav, and instead of fuzzing for directory, we want to fuzz this. So let's put this here and tell this tool, hey, fuzz everything after this directory, because we found a valid directory. Now we know if there is anything after that directory to see. So if we Yep, it's gonna be fuzzing, and trying random words and see if it can have any hits, you know. So one hit we found was the password.txt, was it? Yep. So after fuzzing, we saw that we have a hit which is password.txt. So we went and then typed slash password.txt and we found those credentials. So from what we saw before, these are base64 encoded. So let's go and decode them real quick. Go them with this. So relevant. Let's go. The output is going to be new. Let's pass the new thing and let's get new.txt and see. So we have the same credentials that we found on the SMB client. So we know that these credentials going to match the SMB stuff because this one is connected to the SMB. It's the same folder that we found when we connected to SMB, and it's the same file we found inside the SMB share, which is network server. So this is a match for what we found before. But we went through this again so you guys can see what's fuzzing directory is and how you guys can see what's inside the server, you know. If you see something empty, always go and start fuzzing for directories. Now that we know we have credentials, let's go and try something out. Let's do npacket psexec. Then let's try 10, 10, 87. Let's use Bill. And let's see if Bill can access the server right like this. Okay. Okay. So let's see if this is gonna connect to the server and give us a remote connection, you know.
Yes. Yeah, so right now, guys, it's trying to connect as Bill with this password through psexec. You know what, Star, explain to them what psexec is.
Okay, so we went through. It's not gonna connect through this, I guess. But let's go back and see why I explained this before. So do you remember, guys, when I told you Impact Tools? Basically, Impact Tools has a lot of tools that you can use to when it comes to Windows, and one of them is psexec. Basically, psexec it will validate the user and the password on this server and see if it has any write access on the SMB files. If it has access on the SMB files, it's gonna upload not a beacon. Let's say it's gonna upload a reverse connection file there. It will execute it and have a connection back. So it will do all this stuff automatically. But that will work only if the user has access to the shared folders, you know, like read and write access to admin specifically. So now when we did Bill, it's kind of stuck, but because Bill I think is not the intended one. So it was timing out because of the IP. It was 87. But yeah, now we know like authenticated as guest. boarding, we know this is trying to authenticate as guest. What happened if we try, instead of Bill, let's try the other one was called Bob. Okay, let's try Bob and see if Bob can access that one. Let's see type of errors too. And there you go. So you see, this is what I was trying to explain before. So it's requesting shares on 1010. It's basically requesting shares on the server that we are trying to have access on. It's seeing if admin, as I told you guys, admin and C are default on the SMB. It's trying to see if they are writable. They are not. Admin and C are not writable. So it found this one where we found the password. It's writable. It tried to upload the exe file there. It tried to run it using the SVC manager, but it had the problem of opening the SVC manager. As I told you, pay attention to the details. We know that this share is writable. You know, that means that instead of exe files, maybe we will be able to upload another stuff. So let's get back real quick to, let's minimize this and let's get back to SMB client. Okay, so 87.240. Now we should be able to connect to this one. There you go. Okay, we saw before that this was writable, right? Because when the PS exec tried to upload a reverse connection or like reverse file, it told us that this network is writable. So instead of doing PS exec, how can we know that we can put files inside the SMB and maybe we can put a reverse connection there? How can we know if there is any writable folders inside the SMB that we can have access on without doing PS exec or anything? That's where let's go to 2. That's where crack map exec will comes in handy. Like if we do crack map exec SMB, instead of this, let's do, was it tac shares, I guess? Wait, the IP again. So we are trying to list the shares. Okay, it's not broken pipe. Was it tac shares? Let's try SMB map. So basically what I'm trying to do right now is to see if there is any writable folders there. You know, let's imagine that we didn't see anything with PS exec, and we want to make sure that we can see if there is any writable shares. That one. Yep, it's authenticating. Go. So crack map exec gave this error because we didn't put like username, because sometimes even if you have guest login, you need like to specify any username you want. So using SMB map, which can do like similar stuff as listing the shared folders with permissions and comment too. And as user, we used throw. So right now we can see if we have any access to the shared folders. So we know an admin, we don't have any access, as we saw on PSExec. C, we don't have any access to. And IPC, we have read only. This is where I think Alien will cover this part when he do the Active Directory thing with Pro 2. This will come really handy if you are on Active Directory to grab usernames. And here we can see that we have read and write permissions on this folder. So if we have write permissions, let's go and test it and see if we can put anything there. So right here, let me just exit this real quick. PWD, I'm at start. Let's go to relevant. And let's like make a folder. Let's nano, I don't know. Let's call it hey.txt. Hello, it's me. So now we know that hey.txt is there. So now let's do the SMB client and log in. And let's try to put this that we just created inside the shared folders. So let's do put and hey.txt, and let's see if that will accept it. Putting file hey.txt as hey.txt. So now if we do list directories or list folders, it's there. So now we have permission to write on this thing. So let's go and make sure here because we have access on this port. So if we do hey.txt, we should be able to see it though. There you go. There you go. So now we know that we have write access and we can see the files from here. So how about if we go and grab malicious file or create a malicious file and upload it there so we can have a reverse connection on this server. Let's keep going and let's put the malicious file here. So one thing we can do, we can use it's an easy stuff, which is the MSF Venom. Basically with this, we can create a reverse file and we can have a connection back. So basically it's a malicious file that will be executed on server side and give us a connection back to our machine, like the attacking machine. So let's do, instead of exe, let's do ASPX because we know that Windows Server likes ASPX. So let's do ASPX. Then output, I want it to be like hey.aspx.
So let me
Then,
stop you there real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
How do we know that this is going to accept an ASPX file? So through our enumeration, we found out that it's an ASP.NET server, or this Windows server is ASP.NET. If you go to Google and you search out files accepted by ASP.NET, you'll see a list of files that will be accepted for upload to this server. One of them is .aspx. Now you can make a shell, you can make a reverse shell without ASPX by using MSF Venom, or you can search one out somewhere on the internet, perhaps somewhere.
Oh yeah, what we can do too is like, hey, we can search for ASPX rev shell, which is reverse shell, and we can see like GitHub got a lot of reverse shells out there.
Yeah, you can use revshells.com. Alien has pointed out in chat, or you can
Oh,
use this route too. There's multiple routes you can go. Just a matter of Googling it out.
yep. But the thing is, this ASPX shell, this one is really good because it's ASPX based and because I used this on labs that we did and on boxes that we did on Hack the Box, especially Windows boxes. This one's really good. Like you only need to change the IP and specify a port, and that's it. So what we can do is we can click on row. Let's test this one and see if it will give us any connection back.
Sure.
Cool. Let's go and type. Okay, let's try this one. Let's go to relevant. Let's edit this. Let's call this file hey dot. Okay, wait. Let's call it throw.espx. What ports do you think we should do? Right now, I'm doing the 1337. Maybe this one's gonna work.
That should work. Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, so let's rename it again to work. Then let's run it again. I mean, it's trying to make the connection, you see. There you go.
Good night. It took forever.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, usually
Okay.
the that tool acts a little weird if you use a port lower than 1024. Everything acts weird when you try to connect with the shell on those.
Yeah. I mean, finally, okay, now that we have the reverse shell, the first thing we're gonna do is like, who am I? Like, okay, I have a reverse connection, but who am I on this server, you know? Who am I using as a reverse connection as a user? So we see this. This is default IIS web server user. So the next thing, if you are on Windows machine, you want to see what privileges you have. So who am I? Then slash privs. In that, okay, nope, not privs. Priv. This should list the privileges you have as this user. Let's make this bigger. So now we have like C assignment primary token privileges, C increase code privileges, audit, change, impersonate, created global privileges, and increase working. So one thing I can recommend you guys is like search each privilege on Google and see what you can do with it. Like on this one, we have the privilege to impersonate the client after authentication. So how about if we just copy this privilege name, go to Google again, and we just search for it, you know? We can read a little bit about it, but we can see that we can escalate, like we can privilege escalate ourselves to be admin here using this privilege. So if we go to this, we can see if we do system info, we're gonna see type of server we are using. This is just explaining how this works. You see they have the same thing as we are seeing right now on the web server. And okay, this is exe shell. Okay, he's using Metasploit here. Like with Metasploit, if you do like uh priv escalate or like get system, you're gonna like have all the privileges needed, you know. But right now we see that he is using print spoofer. So what we can do is like putting this and do exploit right beside it. We're gonna see a lot of pages talking about how to abuse this privilege and elevate or escalate from a normal user to admin. What we can do, we can just go with this one, go here, and just we can see he's using Juicy Potato. He is using print spoofer, abusing impersonate privilege using print spoofer. So right here we see there is a repository for print spoofer. Basically, print spoofer was what it will do. It will impersonate any user you want and give you access as that user. So basically, if you're gonna impersonate admin, then it will give you access as admin, and you can control the whole system with admin privileges. So let's go and download that. Now let's go and see if it got downloaded. So let's go to downloads. Okay, so LSLA print. There you go. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. So it's there. We have it there. Let's move it from here to relevant folder so we can keep everything organized. Now, if we go to relevant, we should see it there. There you go. So we need to upload this to the victim server so we can do the impersonate attack. So one thing we can do, we can use the cert util service. Basically, this tool can allow you to upload any type of file you want inside the server. So let's list and see where we at. So basically, we are inside init server folder. So how about if we go and upload it here? So we do cert util, then f, then URL cache. Let's do URL cache first. Then f, then let's specify our IP because we will be hosting the file so it can grab it from our system. Then let's say we want to host this file on, I don't know, let's keep it high. Let's go with 9009. And here let's specify the port we have open, which is 9009. Then here let's type the name of that thing that we want to upload. I think it was called princepoofer.exe. Then we want to output it, so I'm gonna type like the output I want it to be ps.exe, just as simple as that. Let's see if it will grab the file. There you go. So it grabbed the file. Let me just remove this one. So it just grabbed the file from the system, but there is a problem there. I don't think we have permission to upload here. We can use Windows temp file. Let's go here. Let's go to temp. There you go. So let's try and upload it here. So let's copy the same command, paste it, and see if it will copy it here. There you go. So the problem was that we didn't have any write permission on that folder, and on Windows you can see there is temp directory there. The same thing as Linux. On temp directory you will have read and write access with any user you can think of. So if we do directory listing, we're gonna see PS right there. There you go. So now what we can do, let's get back to that article and see what our next move is. So right here, he just downloaded this, uploaded, and the next thing he did was this, like printspoofer.exe tag taxi.cmd. Basically, he's impersonating the system administration, and he's calling for a new CMD with system administration privileges. Here we can see he's troubleshooting this. So let's go and try it. So we're gonna copy only this thing, this part, like taxi cmd, or we can go to our shell, and if you did it before, you can just type ex.exe, then taxi cmd. Let's see if this is gonna work. Okay, so ps.exe taxi cmd. Okay, so who am I? We still the same. So there is a problem there with this command. Okay, let's try the 64. Let's just copy it instead of going into the whole folder. and .exe. Then I want it to be like ps64.exe. And here we need to host the file again. There you go. You got the file. It's uploading it here. Okay, now let's try with the 64 and see if that's gonna solve the problem. It's trying. And yep, there you go. Nice catch, bro.
Nice.
So now this, like, we just exploited these privileges, like this privilege. We found that this one was set, it was default on this user. It created a new process as system admin. So now if we do who am I, it should give us system admin. There you go. So now finally we are system admin on this box. We can do whatever we want. We can change passwords. We can create users. We can do whatever we want with this server. So as this is a CDF, so what we can do is like going to CD users directory. Let's go to administrator and let's just go to desktop and grab the flag. There should be a flag there. So type root.txt, and that's our flag for this box. So now if we want the user flag, it should be on Bob. Then type user.txt. There you go. So now we have both flags. We can go and submit them there. We own the box. We are administration of this box. So we can do whatever we want.
Now we can set up ransomware.
That was good, Star. Yeah, that was
Yep.
good. I
So
like that.
so if you are on, like, let's say if you are on a big company and you just owned a Windows machine on that company, what you can do is like start jumping into another PCs, see what internal server, like the internal services, see what's the internal IP. That's gonna be advanced stuff, but I'm just giving you guys an idea how to go through stuff from here.
Yep, sounds good. Hey,
And
so this right about now at the end, I like to either if I'm not presenting, I do it at the end. But I wanted to go over real world application of what just happened today. So at the beginning we had Nmap. So just be mindful that if you're doing pen testing real world, that those port knocking like that as he did will be very loud. You'd be picked up by a defender solution of some sort. But if that system is disabled or the client turned it off, you're free to do it like that. But just be mindful that that type of port knocking and port scanning is noisy. His
Yes.
note taking today. Note taking is very important. It is just as important for reporting. You can't just go in and do pen testing and not think you don't have anyone to report to. It has to be legible. It has to be clear and concise. So turning his notes into a report that he would turn in to the client is the most important piece. If you're going to break into something, you got to tell everyone how you did it. Um, fuzzing is just randomized input. Not that random, but when we get into true fuzzing, it is randomized input. Seeing what characters make an application respond to what. The MSM Venom, MSF Venom. The encryption or not, Metasploit, the use of Metasploit in all modules will be picked up real world. I want to address that. Building that shell out manually is a good practice. It's hit or miss, whether it works on CTF platforms, but it's more of a miss real world when we have defensive mitigations in place. That shell or reverse shell has a signature that everyone tracks. Okay, so last thing is the x64 bit architecture. All right, so if y'all notice the shell and how you had a rough time with the shell when crafting it, and then again the wrong architecture for the download of the exploit. The architecture matters. When you make it to a system level, the architecture matters. Web is web, ASP is ASP when you're pen testing it, but once he made it to the system itself, trying to prevent in the system with that, the architecture for the EXE had to be exactly perfect.
Drop a